you ever spent time in Burlington's town hall, you may have noticed a small display case near the entryway on the first floor. It's a small wooden cane with a gold handle, and its story connects Burlington to a New England tradition stretching back more than a century.
It's actually started as a sales pitch for an old-time newspaper, the Boston Post. The paper itself actually was a big deal. At one time, it was the largest broadsheet paper in the country. And this guy named Edwin Grozier, he knew how to market. He put out a pretty good product, but he knew how to market. Around 1900, he decided to find out who the oldest couple in New England was. By the oldest couple, he meant you add their ages together and find out who's the oldest. In 1909, he did something similar. Again, hung up on this longevity thing. He decided to create a Boston Post cane, a cane that would be passed to the oldest resident in each town. And once that person died and moved out, it would be passed on to the next one.
Alan Foulds documented the history of the Boston Post cane on his podcast, It's Also History.
Although the paper has been gone now for nearly 70 years, many of its canes are still floating around. At last check, 500 have been accounted for. In many cases, the canes have continuously been passed on to the rightful holders.
But what about Burlington?
The interesting adventure with ours is that when our town hall was redone in 1995, it went missing. And at one point in time, I happened to mention to someone that, this thing existed, and it would be nice. I said, I think we've lost ours, but it would be nice we could get a replica and kind of start the tradition again. And that person mentioned to me, oh, I think my aunt has it. And the aunt had been an employee here, and it was in a box, and somebody said, well, we got to get this stuff out of here. What do we do with it? And she took it for safekeeping.
Thus, the case in Town Hall was born.
Well, in all the years I've read about these things, this is actually the first time I've actually seen a real Boston Post cane. When he first gave them out in 1909, it said to the oldest citizen, but in his mind it was clear he meant the oldest male. And when some of the selectmen who were the keepers of the cane in each town balked at that and said, you said oldest citizen. He says, I mean oldest registered voter. And as we know, women weren't registered voters until 1920. When Edwin Grozier died, his son didn't have quite the same biases, and from then on, it was open to all citizens, regardless of gender.
Town Clerk Amy Warfield says the town will keep the original in its case, but it's getting ready to award a replica to a Burlington resident who's more than 100 years old.
So we do have someone who is 103 years old, and I'm in conversation now with her family to see if she would like to be awarded it.
I think, New England is a very traditional place, and I think people like this idea of this passing this on.
I think it's a fun thing, and I think it also, for people who have lived here for a good portion of their lives, and who have contributed to the town, in one way or another. They were civically active. Maybe they raised all their children here, and their children have been active and involved. I just think it's a very cool recognition of our town and our heritage.
From Burlington Town Hall, I'm Sydney Bowles.